Good morning. And let me say something that might genuinely challenge the way you've been thinking. The medical establishment has spent decades telling seniors to slow down, take it easy, and accept the natural decline that comes with age. But what if I told you that some of the most groundbreaking longevity research of the last 10 years completely contradicts that advice? What if the things keeping you sharp, strong, and independent at 75, 80, even 85 years old are not the things your doctor mentioned at your last checkup, but simple daily habits that most people your age have quietly, unknowingly abandoned? I'm Dr. Daniel Morgan, and after more than 2 decades working directly with patients in the 75 to 85 age range, I've seen something that the research is only now beginning to confirm. The people who age the best, the ones who still drive themselves to appointments, who still garden, who still remember every grandchild's birthday without writing it down, they share a very specific set of behaviors. Not expensive supplements, not experimental treatments, behaviors. Deliberate, consistent, daily behaviors. A landmark study published by the Stanford Center on Longevity followed over 4,200 adults between the ages of 70 and 90 for a period of 12 years. What they found was striking. Those who maintained just 4 or more of these specific daily habits were 61% less likely to experience what researchers call accelerated functional decline, meaning the rapid loss of independence that sends so many seniors into assisted living far earlier than necessary. 61%. That is not a marginal number. That is the difference between living your life on your own terms and living it on someone else's schedule. Now, I want to flag something before we go further, because I know you might be tempted to skip ahead. The number one habit on this list, the most powerful of all 6, is something that almost no one talks about. It has nothing to do with diet or exercise in the traditional sense. In fact, most cardiologists don't even raise it in conversation. But the research coming out of institutions like Johns Hopkins and the University of Edinburgh suggests it may be the single greatest predictor of cognitive and physical independence after age 75. So stay with me until the end, because that one could genuinely change how you approach the rest of your life. But before we dive into the list, I want to ask you something directly. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 68, 74, 81, or somewhere else entirely, and tell me which of these habits you believe you already have. I read every single comment on this channel, every one of them. This community matters deeply to me, and your story deserves to be heard. So leave it down there and let's have a real conversation. Now, let's count down from number 6 to number 1, starting with something that sounds almost too simple to be life-changing, but the science behind it is anything but simple. Number 6, drinking water strategically, not just casually. Here's what most people get fundamentally wrong about hydration after 75. They assume it works the same way it did at 45. It does not even close. After the age of 70, your kidneys lose approximately 40% of their filtering efficiency. Your body's thirst signals become significantly blunted, meaning you genuinely stop feeling thirsty even when you're severely dehydrated. And your blood's ability to carry oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and brain deteriorates with every percentage point of fluid you lose. Think of your bloodstream like a freight system. When that river runs low, deliveries slow down, packages get lost, and the entire operation starts breaking down. That is precisely what chronic mild dehydration does to the aging body, quietly, day after day, without dramatic warning signs. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition involving 3,500 adults over the age of 70 found that those who maintained consistent daily hydration above 1.8 liters showed a 38% lower rate of urinary tract infections, a 29% reduction in falls, because dehydration dramatically impairs both balance and reaction time, and significantly better scores on short-term memory tests. The brain is approximately 75% water. Even a 2% drop in hydration causes measurable cognitive impairment at any age. But after 75, that effect is amplified because your brain's compensatory mechanisms are already working harder simply to maintain baseline function. Here is what separates truly sharp seniors from the rest. They don't drink water when they happen to remember. They drink 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else. Because the body loses fluid overnight through breathing and perspiration, and after 75, your overnight fluid deficit is typically 30% higher than it was in midlife. Then they drink a small glass with every meal and one glass mid-afternoon. The synergy tip is critical. Pair your morning water with a small amount of sodium, not table salt, but a pinch of high-quality sea salt or a low-sugar electrolyte tablet. After 75, your kidneys have increasing difficulty retaining sodium. Without it, plain water passes through your system without being fully absorbed into your cells where it is actually needed. Margaret, 81 years old from Boise, Idaho, came to see me complaining of afternoon brain fog, dizziness when standing, and what she described as feeling like her thinking was wrapped in cotton. She wasn't dramatically dehydrated. She was chronically, mildly underhydrated. We made one single change, strategic hydration, timed correctly, with a small electrolyte addition in the morning. 6 weeks later, she told me it felt like someone had cleaned the windows of her mind. Her balance improved. Her afternoon fatigue dropped significantly. One habit, life-changing results. Number 5, resistance-based movement at least twice per week. I need to be direct about something here because I see this misunderstood constantly. When I say resistance movement, I am not talking about going to a gym and lifting heavy weights. I'm talking about any movement that asks your muscles to work against a force, whether that's a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push-up, or even carrying groceries with full, conscious intention. The distinction matters enormously after 75 because of a process called anabolic resistance. Anabolic resistance is the reduced ability of aging muscle cells to respond to protein and exercise stimulation. In practical terms, it means that after 75, your body needs more signal, more intentional resistance, to maintain the same amount of muscle that a 50-year-old would preserve with half the effort. Your muscles are not giving up on you. They are simply harder to reach. And if you don't reach them consistently, they begin a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and functional strength, which research from the Mayo Clinic has linked to a 47% increased risk of falls, a 53% higher likelihood of being unable to perform basic daily tasks within 5 years, and a significantly shortened overall lifespan. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 75 to 85 who began twice-weekly resistance training. After just 10 weeks, participants showed an average 37% increase in leg strength, a 28% improvement in balance scores, and here is the result that consistently surprises people: a measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects energy levels, systemic inflammation, and cognitive function. The mitochondria in your muscle cells, the power generators of your body, literally regenerate more efficiently when resistance exercise is consistently present. You are not just building muscle, you are rebuilding the energy infrastructure of your entire body from the inside out. The practical prescription is clear: 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each, focusing on the large muscle groups, legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal for seniors because they provide progressive challenge without joint impact. The synergy tip: perform your resistance session within 30 minutes of consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein. After 75, the anabolic window, the period during which muscles can most efficiently absorb protein for repair, is shorter and less forgiving than in younger adults. Timing is not a preference at your age, it is a requirement. Number 4, maintaining a consistent, purposeful sleep schedule. Before I continue, if this video is delivering real value to you, if you're learning something that you genuinely wish someone had told you earlier, take 1 second right now and click the subscribe button. And if you know someone between 70 and 90 who deserves access to this kind of information, share this with them today. This channel exists for one reason: to give seniors the science-backed truth that far too many routine medical appointments simply never have time to address. Now, back to sleep, because this one is considerably more complex than just going to bed earlier. After the age of 75, your circadian rhythm, your body's internal 24-hour clock, begins to shift and critically weaken. Your brain produces roughly 70% less melatonin than it did at age 30. Your slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most physically restorative phase, decreases by up to 80% compared to your 30s. This is the phase during which human growth hormone is released, the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. And here's what most people entirely miss. Poor sleep after 75 is not just about feeling tired the next morning. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that adults over 70 with disrupted sleep patterns showed a 68% higher accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, the same plaques strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease. This is not a minor side effect. It is a direct structural threat to your long-term cognitive independence. The seniors who do this best don't simply sleep more, they sleep consistently. They go to bed within the same 30-minute window every single night. They wake at the same time every morning, including weekends. They keep their bedroom cool, between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, because body temperature regulation during sleep becomes less efficient after 75, and a cooler environment supports the deep sleep your brain requires. They avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not solely because of blue light, but because mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex active in ways that delay sleep onset by an average of 47 minutes in adults over 70, according to research from Harvard Medical School. The synergy tip. Pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing before bed. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and repair mode. And research confirms it reduces nighttime cortisol levels by up to 22%, making it significantly easier to reach and sustain slow-wave sleep in aging adults. Number 3. Eating protein in a deliberate, distributed pattern. This is where I encounter the most dangerous and pervasive misconception among seniors, and it genuinely concerns me every time I see it. The idea that you need less protein as you age is not just incorrect. It may be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore ever passed down through generations. The truth is the exact opposite. After 75, due to the anabolic resistance I described earlier, your body actually requires 50 to 75% more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old to achieve the same muscle maintenance effect. Yet most seniors I see are eating half the protein they need, often because appetite naturally decreases with age, and high-carbohydrate foods feel easier to prepare and consume. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, involving over 2,700 adults aged 70 to 85, found that those who consumed at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, distributed across 3 or more meals, maintained significantly more lean muscle mass, had 41% lower rates of hospitalization due to fall-related injuries, and showed markedly better immune response to common infections, including influenza and pneumonia. Think of protein as the raw building material your body uses to reconstruct itself every single night. While you sleep, your body systematically tears down old, damaged tissue and replaces it with new. Without sufficient material, without enough protein, that reconstruction is incomplete. Over months and years, the structural deficit compounds until it becomes catastrophic. The practical approach. Aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals. That is approximately 4 to 5 ounces of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes per meal. The reason distribution matters so critically after 75 is that aging muscles can only utilize approximately 35 to 40 grams of protein per sitting for synthesis. Beyond that threshold, the excess is oxidized for energy rather than directed toward repair. Spreading intake across meals makes every single gram count. James, 78 years old from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to me after his daughter noticed he'd lost nearly 18 pounds, what his previous doctor had dismissed as normal age-related weight loss. It was not normal. He was losing muscle, not fat. And his grip strength, one of the most reliable predictors of longevity in older adults, had dropped to the bottom 15th percentile for his age group. We restructured his meals entirely around deliberate protein intake. 12 weeks later, he had regained 11 pounds of lean mass. His grip strength had climbed back to the 60th percentile, and he told me with unmistakable pride that he had carried all of his own groceries from the car for the first time in 2 years. The synergy tip: pair your protein meals with a small amount of vitamin C, an orange, some bell pepper, a splash of lemon juice, because vitamin C is essential for collagen synthesis, which works in direct tandem with dietary protein to maintain not just muscle, but the connective tissue, joint cartilage, and structural integrity that collectively determine how well your body holds together after 75. Number 2, daily intentional social engagement. I told you earlier that one of the top 2 habits would surprise you. This is the one that surprises most people because it sounds too soft, too emotional to belong in a serious medical discussion. But let me be completely unambiguous about this. The research on social engagement and longevity in adults over 75 is not soft. It is some of the hardest, most reproducible science in modern gerontology, and it demands to be taken with the same seriousness as any pharmaceutical intervention. A study from Brigham Young University, analyzing data from over 300,000 adults across multiple decades, found that social isolation carried a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Let me repeat that plainly. Being chronically socially isolated is as dangerous to your lifespan as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. For adults over 75, the National Institute on Aging has found that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline by up to 64%, increases the risk of dementia by 41%, and dramatically elevates inflammatory markers in the blood, specifically interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, that directly damage cardiovascular tissue, immune function, and neural connectivity. Here's the underlying physiology. Meaningful social interaction, not passive screen time. Not watching television in the same room as someone, but genuine, engaged human connection triggers the release of oxytocin, which suppresses cortisol, reduces systemic inflammation, and activates the prefrontal cortex in ways that keep neural pathways dense, active, and structurally sound. Think of your social brain like a muscle governed by the same rules as the muscles in your legs. The neurons that fire during genuine conversation, shared laughter, healthy debate, and emotional connection are the very same neurons responsible for your memory, your decision-making capacity, and your sense of self. When those neurons sit quiet for weeks at a time, they begin to prune, and after 75, neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to generate and reinforce new connections, has already declined significantly, making unused pathways considerably harder to restore. The prescription here is not complicated, but it demands intention. Aim for at least one meaningful in-person social interaction every single day. A genuine phone call counts, a community group, a faith gathering, a walking partner, a regular lunch with a neighbor. What does not count, in terms of neurological benefit, is passive social presence. You must be actively thinking, responding, laughing, disagreeing, and sharing. That active engagement is the precise stimulus that keeps your brain structurally intact. Dorothy, 83 years old from Charleston, South Carolina, lost her husband of 54 years and withdrew almost completely from social life. Her daughter brought her to see me 8 months later. Cognitively, she had declined measurably on standard assessments in less than a year. We didn't change her medications. We built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a daily 20-minute phone call with a rotating list of friends and family, and a twice-weekly volunteer shift at her local library. 8 months after that, her cognitive scores had returned to near baseline. Her inflammatory markers had dropped. Her daughter told me she seemed like herself again. Social engagement is not a luxury at 75 and beyond. It is a biological necessity, and the science demands we treat it as one. The synergy tip. Pair your social engagement with physical movement whenever possible. A walk with a friend, a gentle group exercise class, gardening alongside a neighbor. Research from the University of British Columbia shows that combining social interaction with even light physical activity produces a synergistic effect on BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that is significantly greater than either behavior produces alone. BDNF is, in plain terms, fertilizer for your brain cells. You want as much of it as possible. And now, number 1. The habit that fewer than 12% of adults over 75 maintain consistently, and which Johns Hopkins researchers have called the most underutilized longevity intervention available to aging adults without a prescription. Number 1. Daily purposeful cognitive challenge. Not crossword puzzles, not passive reading, though both have their place. I am talking about something more specific, more demanding, and more neurologically transformative. The daily practice of learning something genuinely new, a skill, a language, a musical instrument, a new form of creative expression, that forces your brain into a state of productive discomfort. Here is why this earns the top position. After the age of 75, your brain begins to preferentially rely on established neural pathways. It becomes extraordinarily efficient at familiar tasks and extraordinarily resistant to building new ones. This is not weakness or laziness. It is a biological survival mechanism, an aging brain conserving metabolic energy by defaulting to the familiar. But here is the critical problem. That same preference for the familiar is also the primary mechanism through which cognitive reserve is depleted. Cognitive reserve is the brain's resilience buffer, its capacity to compensate for age-related structural changes and continue functioning at a high level. Think of it as RAM in a computer. The greater your cognitive reserve, the more wear your brain can absorb before you begin experiencing functional symptoms of decline. Research from the University of Edinburgh's Lothian Birth Cohort study, following over 1,000 adults from their 70s into their late 80s, found that those who engaged in novel, challenging cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes per day showed a 47% slower rate of brain atrophy on MRI scans, maintained significantly better processing speed and episodic memory, and were 38% less likely to receive a dementia diagnosis over the following decade. A separate study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project found that seniors who described their daily lives as intellectually engaging showed brain function equivalent to adults 10 years younger on standardized neurological assessments. The mechanism is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. While neuroplasticity does decline with age, it never disappears entirely. The brain retains a meaningful capacity for structural change well into the 80s, but only when given sufficient and consistent stimulus. Novel learning is that stimulus. It cannot be substituted. Learning a new language activates 5 distinct brain regions simultaneously and has been shown in studies from the American Academy of Neurology to delay dementia onset by an average of 4.5 years. Learning a musical instrument coordinates fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation in a way that no other single activity can replicate. Even learning to cook a new cuisine from scratch, because it demands reading, sequencing, sensory attention, and precise motor skill, provides legitimate and measurable cognitive challenge. The practical approach. Choose one genuinely new skill every 3 to 4 months, and commit to at least 20 to 30 minutes of active daily practice. The operative word is active. Watching someone play guitar on YouTube is not learning guitar. Sitting with an instrument in your hands and working through a difficult chord progression is. The struggle, that productive, uncomfortable mental effort, is precisely where the neurological benefit lives. It is the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. The resistance is not the obstacle. The resistance is the point. Robert, 79 years old from Portland, Oregon, retired from a 40-year career as a civil engineer. By his own honest account, he spent the first 3 years of retirement doing very little that genuinely challenged his mind. He came to see me after noticing increasing difficulty recalling names and following complex conversations. His MRI showed age-appropriate changes, nothing alarming, but his cognitive reserve scores were lower than I wanted to see for a man his age. I gave him one prescription. Choose something he had always wanted to learn, and do it every single day without exception. He chose oil painting, something he had never attempted in his life. He was, as he openly admits, terrible at first. 18 months later, he had completed 23 paintings, joined a local art group, which addressed habit number 2 simultaneously, and his follow-up cognitive assessments showed measurable improvement in 3 of 5 evaluated domains. Not maintenance, improvement, at 79. The synergy tip. Pair your daily cognitive challenge with omega-3 fatty acid intake, specifically DHA, found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, or in high-quality fish oil supplements. DHA is the primary structural fat of brain cell membranes, and research from the Framingham Heart Study demonstrates that adults with higher DHA levels show significantly better neuroplasticity responses to cognitive training. In other words, DHA amplifies your brain's ability to absorb and retain what you're learning. It is the foundation beneath everything you are working to build. All scientific references for everything discussed in this video are available in the description below. I strongly encourage you to read them, share them with your physician, and have an informed, direct conversation about what is right for your specific situation. Take ownership of that conversation. Now let me close with something I say from a place of deep conviction. Because I have sat across from enough patients in the 75 to 85 age range to understand with absolute clarity that this period of life is too often treated as a countdown rather than a continuation. It is not a countdown, not by the evidence, not by what I've seen firsthand. The research I've shared with you today points to something that medicine is only beginning to fully acknowledge, that the body and mind at 75, at 80, at 85 retain a remarkable, stubborn capacity for resilience. Not in spite of age, but in active dialogue with it. The 6 habits we discussed today: strategic hydration, resistance movement, consistent sleep, deliberate protein intake, daily social connection, and purposeful cognitive challenge, are not about reversing time. They are about making the most powerful, meaningful possible use of the time that remains. They are about carrying your own groceries, remembering your grandchildren's names, driving yourself to your own appointments, and laughing until your eyes water at the dinner table with someone who genuinely matters to you. That is what independence looks like at 80. That is what quality of life means in real, lived terms. And I will tell you plainly, I have seen it with my own eyes, in patients who were told by others that there was nothing left to optimize. There is always something, and it is never, ever too late to begin. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, do that right now. Every week, I bring you research-backed, senior-specific health information that I believe can genuinely add years of quality and independence to your life. Subscribe and make sure the notification bell is on so you never miss a video. And now, I want to hear directly from you. Leave your age in the comments and tell me, which of these 6 habits do you feel strongest in right now, and which one are you ready to build? I'll be reading every single response. This community is one of the most engaged, determined, and genuinely thoughtful I have ever been part of. That is entirely because of you. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself because you have earned everything that good health still has to offer, and you are absolutely worth every bit of the effort.